unlawful. Yeah. This Smith Act, we had looked at it before, a federal statute making it unlawful to attempt to overthrow the government by force. Yeah. Then there's this little statement, so help me God. A statement concluding the swearing process, the words ordinarily concluding an oath. Yes. Now, I had looked at the military's actual involvement in the United States and had quite a few screen prints that we might just look at. Because there is really not a lot of difference between slander and attempting to overthrow the government. Now, for all of those that play football that think it's unfair to play students that are not the right ages, yes. I just want to make sure, okay, that were they the 1B? Yeah, 1B champions, 2B champions, yeah. Mhm. Well, I'm gonna want to know your name. Now, I want my sons to reside with me, and the thought of just saying somebody's crazy for realizing their rights have been violated, that there was no authority, jurisdiction, or power to issue the protection order in 2011. There was no right to actually abduct my sons or traffic them, exploit them as athletes in the high school. As a dad, it's a little upsetting to me that we've allowed this to happen. Yeah. Now, the United States was involved in the writing of a law in 2000. I downloaded a copy of it and I just had a brief moment to read it. Yes. But these international treaties and agreements are enforceable. Now, I'm kind of thinking, okay, when the United States involves themselves in signing these laws, yeah, and you decide, well, we're just not going to enforce them. We're not going to enforce kidnapping laws. We're not going to enforce, oh, look at Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000. Yes. Now, I just read, just the title of it, Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000. You were saying, well, we don't really want you to enforce the Smith Act. Yes. But this is something very interesting. It's a public law. Yeah. 106386 to combat trafficking in persons, especially into the sex trade, slavery, and voluntary servitude of having to play on a football team, to reauthorize certain federal programs to prevent violence against women for other purposes. Yeah. This act may be cited as the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000. Yeah. Now, we're familiar with the Violence Against Women's Act of 2000? Yeah. Where you did not have any jurisdiction of law to issue the protection order in 2011 because Heidi wasn't a resident? Yes. Benjamin was born on Guam in 2010. And the Trafficking of Victims Protection Act of 2000 is something that I do think comes into play. Yes, yes, yes. Now, let's say I sued you as a school district. Strengthening law enforcement to reduce violence against men and male children. Yes, yes, yes. Now, let's just look at some of these sections because you said the Violence Against Women's Act was really enforced and you had the jurisdiction to do what you're doing. Yes. But as the 21st century begins, the degrading institution of slavery continues throughout the world. Yes. Now, I've been enslaved numerous times. I've been on personal recognizance. Yes. Where you refused to admit the evidence I wasn't in Sequim. Yeah. You refused to admit the evidence I wasn't in Brennan. At least 700,000 persons annually, primarily women and children, are trafficked within or across international borders. Approximately 50,000 women and children are trafficked in the United States each year. Now, let's say my five sons were trafficked to Bremen, Washington, and this is an actual enforceable law. Yes. Now, you don't see it as trafficking in children because, in your mind, I'm sorry, but it is true. See, when fraud and forgery are used to issue protection orders, yes, where the parenting rights of the father are not enforced before issuing a disillusionment, traffickers often make representation to their victims that physical harm may or may not occur to them. Now, let's say my sons wanted to talk to me and you said, "Oh, we're sorry they can't. We are not going to let you call your father because my Uncle Wayne was." Ooh. Trafficking in athletes in high schools is increasingly perpetrated by organized and sophisticated criminal enterprises that involve superintendents of schools, civil rights coordinators, yes, principals, coaches. The profits from this trafficking industry contribute to the expansion of the organized violating of the civil rights of American students because nobody really wants to enforce the laws. Now, this nationwide employment network in the context of slavery servitude, yeah. Involuntary servitude statutes are intended to reach in cases that are held in condition. United States versus Kosminski. Should be narrowly interpreted absent a definition of involuntary servitude. Yes. I've been telling you for the last, 2.5 years, right? And you decided that you just would not enforce the laws. Yeah. Now, in the United States, traffickers are often hindered by sheriffs and police departments that slander the father of the five sons, by the corruption of paying police officers because of relatives that don't want me to have my sons, and oftentimes in this instance, the official participation of those that are oaths of office, those that are attorneys, prosecuting attorneys, and public defenders, judges, and justices of the United States of America. This is an enforceable law. Now, as I documented, yes, I never got one of these disillusions of marriage. It seemed that you didn't think. And then to slander me by saying that I'm incompetent to stand trial. And then to enforce personal recognizance as the involuntary servitude of having to appear in court because the Port Angeles Police Department would not admit the evidence that I wasn't independent. And then there's the mail returned unclaimed, where Judge Rohr said, "Right now, I'm going to have you put in prison."